Linda and James had been living together for 3 years. Their marriage seemed exemplary. A harmonious relationship, joint plans, warm evenings at home. Linda was sure they were happy. But one day, her illusion of a perfect marriage gave way. It all started by accident. James left his phone on the table, and Linda saw a message appear on the screen. "Can't wait to meet you." Linda's heart froze. She decided not to jump to conclusions, but doubts were already beginning to gnaw at her from the inside. That evening, James said he had to stay late at work. Linda pretended that everything was fine, but in her heart she had already made up her mind. She must know the truth. She got into the car and followed him. James stopped at a small cafe in the center of town. Linda parked nearby and stayed in the car, watching. After a few minutes, a woman approached him. They sat down at the table, laughing, showing their closeness with gestures. Then Linda saw something that broke her heart. James gently took the woman's hand and kissed it. Linda could barely hold back her tears. She felt anger, disappointment, and pain at the same time. How could he? Their marriage, their life together, everything seemed ruined. She drove home quietly, trying to figure out what to do next. Linda sat in her car parked outside a small cafe, watching as James gently held another woman's hand. Her heart clenched in pain, but at the same time a plan appeared in her head. She knew she couldn't just forgive it. She wanted him to understand the pain he had caused her. That same evening, Linda returned home, where she spent a long time thinking about what to do. Eventually, she opened the phone and called Michael, her old friend. They hadn't spoken in years, but he always had feelings for her, and she knew it. Their conversation was short. She offered to meet. Michael agreed without thinking. The following evening, Linda wore a figure-hugging black dress, applied light makeup, and let her long hair down. She looked gorgeous, but at the same time, there was a sadness in her eyes that she tried to hide. She arrived at the restaurant where they had agreed to meet and saw Michael already waiting for her. Michael rose from his seat as she approached. His eyes lit up and he smiled. "Linda, you look stunning," he said, offering her his hand. They spent several hours together, talking about the past, about how much had changed over the years. Linda tried to keep calm, but the pain and anger kept her awake. She drank a glass of wine, then another. Her laughter was loud, but inside she felt empty. When dinner was over, Michael offered to give her a ride home. They got into his car, but on the way, Linda said, "Let's stop by your place. I don't want to go home now." Michael was surprised, but agreed. His apartment was cozy with a minimalist interior. They sat down on the sofa, continuing their conversation. Linda felt Michael place a gentle hand on her shoulder. She did not withdraw. Their eyes met, and the room fell silent. Michael leaned closer, and Linda felt her heart sink. She knew she was going to cross the line now, but the pain and the desire for revenge pushed her forward. "Linda, are you sure you want this?" he asked in a soft voice, trying to understand her feelings. She did not respond with words. Everything was in her eyes: pain, anger, disappointment, but at the same time a desire to forget, at least for a moment, what had happened. She leaned into him, and their lips connected in a long, passionate kiss. Michael got up, took her hand, and slowly led her to the bedroom. The room was small but cozy. The light from the table lamp cast a soft light on the bed. Linda took off her shoes, feeling the warm carpet softly under her feet. Michael carefully leaned against her, his hands gently touching her shoulders as they slowly moved lower. He looked into her eyes, as if trying to read her thoughts, to understand if she really wanted this. "You're beautiful," he whispered as his hands touched her waist. Linda felt no fear or doubt. She wanted only one thing: to escape from the pain that was tearing her from the inside. Her fingers slowly slid to his shirt, undoing the buttons. She tried not to think about James, about what would happen next. This night belonged to her and her desire to feel wanted. Michael lifted her in his arms and placed her on the bed. His touches were gentle, attentive, completely different from the ones she was used to. He kissed her neck, shoulders, every movement full of care. Linda felt her heart beat faster, and her thoughts begin to fade away, leaving only a feeling of warmth and closeness. Their night was long. They talked, laughed, shared their thoughts and feelings between pauses filled with passion. Michael held her as she finally allowed herself to relax. She felt not only loved, but also heard, which was so important to her at this moment. As the first glimmers of dawn began to appear in the sky, Linda lay next to Michael, staring at the ceiling. She felt a mixture of relief and guilt. That night helped her forget, but she knew it was only the beginning of the chaos that would now haunt her life. "Are you okay?" Michael asked, running his hand through her hair. "Yes," Linda answered, although her soul was actually torn apart. She decided to get up, get dressed, and go home. Her decision was made, and now she had to figure out how to move on with her life. The morning was quiet but busy. Linda returned home, where James was already waiting for her. He was sitting on the sofa in the living room, nervously clutching a cup of coffee in his hands. His gaze rested on her as soon as she entered. "Where have you been all night?" he asked, raising his voice. Linda, without stopping, put the bag on the chair and looked at him calmly but firmly. "I was where I decided to be, and now we'll talk, James," she said, sitting down across from him. James felt that something was wrong. His face became more and more tense. "I know you're cheating on me. I saw you with that woman in the cafe," Linda said, looking him straight in the eye. James turned white. His hands began to shake nervously. "Linda, it wasn't what you think. I can explain everything." "Explain?" "James, you've already explained everything with your actions. But you know what's worse? I cheated on you back, and it happened tonight." Her voice sounded cold and determined. James exploded. "What? Are you serious? You're just pathetic. You're a prostitute. How could you do that? You're the one who ruined everything." Linda stood up, tears welling up in her eyes, but she held it back. "Me? I ruined it? James, you started it. You turned our marriage into a lie. You cheated on me first, and now you can't handle the same back?" Their quarrel lasted a long time. The words flew at each other like bullets, leaving even more wounds. Linda realized that there was nothing left between them. Their marriage, built on trust and love, was now dead. At last she fell silent, wiped away her tears, and said, "James, I don't want to live like this anymore. This is the end. I want us to break up. I can't forgive you or myself for what happened. We're not the same people we were 3 years ago." James looked confused, but eventually just nodded. His anger gave way to frustration and emptiness. "Okay. If that's what you want, Linda, then so be it," he said, lowering his head. That same day, Linda started packing. Their home, which once seemed like a cozy nest of love, has now turned into a place filled with only bitter memories. They parted without a hug or words of reconciliation. Linda left, knowing she was starting a new chapter in her life, albeit one filled with pain. James was left alone in their house, trying to make sense of how everything had fallen apart so quickly. Both knew their marriage would never come back, and each began a new journey that no longer included the other. A few days after the breakup, Linda began to get used to her new life. She rented a small apartment in another part of the city. All this time she was accompanied by mixed feelings: relief, sadness, guilt, and anger. She tried to find the strength to move on, but the scars from their marriage stayed with her. One day, while she was unpacking boxes of things, her phone rang. It was Michael. "Lindo, how are you?" he asked, his voice warm but cautious. I'm holding on," she replied. Michael offered to meet, but Linda politely declined. She understood that their night was revenge, not true feelings. She didn't want to mislead him or continue a relationship that was born in a moment of weakness. James, on the other hand, was going through hard times. He began to realize that his betrayal was the beginning of the end of their marriage. He tried to find comfort in communicating with the woman with whom he had cheated on Linda, but it no longer brought him joy. He felt empty. One day, James decided to write to Linda. "Linda, I know it's all my fault. I'm so sorry. I'd like to talk if you'd agree." Linda looked at the message for a long time before replying. "We can't take back what was, but if you want to talk, I'm ready to listen." They met in a cafe, the same one where Linda had once seen him with another woman. It was a symbolic place for both. James looked tired and confused. "I know I messed up," he began. "I should never have done this. You were the best thing that ever happened in my life, and I ruined it." Linda listened to him in silence. She felt neither anger nor pity, only emptiness. "James, I thank you for these 3 years. We had a lot of good things, But our story is over. We've hurt each other too much to start over. James nodded, accepting her words. They said goodbye and everyone went their separate ways. Linda continued to live on. She focused on work, started playing sports, found new friends. Over time, the pain subsided, and she learned to appreciate herself. James, in turn, reconsidered his mistakes. He realized that cheating is not a way to solve problems in a relationship, but only a way to destroy them. This became an important lesson for him. Several months have passed. Linda and James, although separated, could not completely forget each other. Moments from their life together often appeared in their thoughts. Evenings together, laughter, conversations until late at night. But each of them was afraid to take the first step, thinking that the other had long since left everything behind. Linda tried to live on. She focused on work, started going to yoga, even agreed to go on a date a few times. But every time she returned home, she felt empty. No new person could replace what was between her and James. James also tried to cope with the pain. He spent a lot of time at work, meeting with friends, but in the evenings his thoughts always returned to Linda. He remembered her smile, how she laughed at his jokes, how she supported him in difficult moments. He understood that he had lost more than he could imagine. One evening, Linda received an invitation to a party from her friend. At first, she didn't want to go, but her friend insisted. "You need to disperse," she said. Linda reluctantly agreed. The party was held in a large house filled with laughter and music. Linda wore a simple but elegant black dress and tried to look confident. She talked with the guests, drank wine, and even laughed a little. But her heart stopped when she saw a familiar figure in the far corner of the room. James was there too. He came at the invitation of a friend, not even knowing that Linda would also be at this party. When their eyes met, both froze for a few seconds. In a room full of people, they only saw each other. Linda felt her heart begin to beat faster. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. James took the first step, approached her. "Hello, Lindo," he said, looking her straight in the eyes. "Hello, James," she replied, trying to hold herself together, though her voice was shaking a little. The conversation began casually about ordinary things. But with each passing minute, they felt the tension between them disappear, giving way to warmth. They moved away from the noise of the party, sitting on the balcony. The air was chilly, but that didn't stop them from talking about everything they had accumulated over the months. "I missed you," James said suddenly, looking at her. Linda lowered her eyes. "I missed it too," she admitted quietly. James took her hand. "I know I made a lot of mistakes, but I can't stop thinking about you. You were and still are an important part of my life." Tears welled up in Linda's eyes. "I thought about you a lot too, but I was afraid. I was afraid that you had already forgotten everything." They sat side by side, holding hands, feeling the walls built between them begin to crumble. They talked for a long time until the party began to die down. When they finally left the party, Linda and James found themselves outside his car. "Can you walk me home?" Linda asked, though she wasn't sure why she said it. "Of course," he answered. When they arrived at her apartment, Linda invited him up for a cup of tea. James agreed, and they continued their conversation already in her small living room. The atmosphere between them was getting warmer. Suddenly, James leaned down and kissed her tenderly. Linda did not push him away. On the contrary, she responded to the kiss. Their emotions, which they had been holding back for months, finally came out. They spent the night together. Their embrace was filled with passion, but also with the pain they both experienced. They took their time, trying to feel again the closeness they had lost for so long. Morning brought light in every sense. Linda woke up feeling the warmth of James next to her. He looked at her, smiling slightly. "I don't want to lose you again," he said. Linda looked at him in silence, then answered, "I don't want to either, but we have a lot to fix if we decide to start over." "I'm willing to work on it. I'll do anything to get you back," James said firmly. They lay side by side for a long time, discussing the future. This night was a new beginning for them, but they both knew that now everything depended on how much they were willing to change for the sake of being together. Linda and James decided not to repeat past mistakes and start from scratch. They understood that their feelings were still alive, but the accumulated hurt and pain would not allow them to build a healthy relationship without help. That's why they signed up for psychology courses. At the first meeting, a psychologist, Dr. Ellen Carter, listened carefully to their story. She suggested that they speak honestly, without fear of judgment, and begin by discussing what led to their breakup. "What do you want to achieve by working with me?" she asked. James spoke first. "I want to rebuild the trust between us. I realize that I was wrong and that I destroyed our marriage with my actions." Linda added, "I want to know if I can forgive him completely, and if we can be happy together again." Dr. Carter nodded. "This is a good start. We will work to restore your emotional connection, learn to listen to each other, and let go of resentment." In the first sessions, Dr. Carter focused on trust. She asked each of them to make a list of things that make them feel safe and secure. James said that it is important to him that Linda is always open about her feelings, even if she does not like something. Linda replied that she needed to see actions, not just words. "I want James to prove by his actions that I am important to him," she said. Dr. Carter gave them a homework assignment to do something every day that shows care and respect for their partner. In subsequent sessions, they talked about what makes them angry, jealous, and resentful. "Linda, how do you feel when you think about James's betrayal?" asked the psychologist. "It hurts. I feel like I'm not good enough," Linda admitted. "James, do you realize how your actions have affected her?" "Yes, I understand that I hurt her, and I regret it every day," he replied. Dr. Carter taught them to recognize and work with these emotional triggers. She suggested an exercise where, when they feel angry or hurt, they write down their thoughts and discuss them during the sessions. One of the hardest parts of therapy was working on forgiveness. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about letting the past control you," explained Dr. Carter. She held a session where each of them expressed their feelings. Linda talked about the pain and disappointment she experienced because of the betrayal. James admitted that he felt worthless for letting her down. It was a difficult conversation, but they felt relieved after it. Linda said, "I can't completely forget, but I want to forgive you so we can move on." Dr. Carter taught them how to communicate properly. They learned to express their feelings without accusations. "When you do something that offends me, I feel like, instead of 'you always do that,'" she explained. Linda and James practiced this technique at home. They began to understand each other better and avoid unnecessary quarrels. The last sessions were dedicated to creating a shared vision for the future. Together, they wrote a list of goals they wanted to achieve, spend more time together, plan trips, work on mutual support. 4 months have passed since they started going to the courses. After completing the course, they felt much closer. Linda no longer held grudges in her heart, and James showed by his actions that he was ready to be a better partner. Their relationship began to resemble the one they had at the beginning of their marriage, but now it was deeper and more mature. Both realized that true love is not the absence of problems, but the ability to solve them together. Linda, holding James's hand, said, "We've been through a lot, but I'm glad we didn't give up." "And I'm glad we're back together and stronger," James replied. Their path was difficult, but they proved to themselves that love and mutual understanding can overcome even the deepest wounds. After completing the course of therapy, Linda and James began a new chapter in their lives. They really worked on their relationship, supported each other, and enjoyed every day together. Their home was filled with laughter and warmth that had not been there for a long time. A year after they decided to get back together, Linda noticed a change in how she felt. At first, she thought it was just tiredness from work, but later she decided to take a pregnancy test. When she saw the 2 stripes, her heart fluttered with joy and excitement. That evening, she decided to break the news to James. During dinner, Linda slid a small box over to him. "What is it?" James asked in surprise, opening it. Inside was a small white body with the words, "Hi, Dad." James froze for a few seconds, then a wide smile lit up his face. "Are you serious? Are we going to be parents?" Linda nodded, tears of happiness welling up in her eyes. James hugged her, laughing and repeating, "I can't believe it! This is the best news ever!" The months of pregnancy flew by for Linda and James. Together, they chose a name, bought baby things, and prepared a room for the baby. James was caring and considerate, always trying to make Linda's new responsibilities easier. "You look even more beautiful," he said when she was nervous about the change in shape. Linda felt loved and protected, and their relationship became even stronger. One morning, while Linda was making breakfast, she felt a seizure begin. James reacted instantly. He picked up the ready bag and helped her into the car. "Everything will be fine, love. I'm with you," he repeated, holding her hand during the ride to the hospital. The birth was not easy, but when Linda finally heard her daughter's first cry, all difficulties disappeared. James stood by, holding Linda's hand. There were tears of joy in his eyes. "She's beautiful, just like you," he whispered, looking at the little one. The daughter was named Sophia. She was their little miracle, which became a symbol of their victory over all difficulties. The first months of parenthood were not easy, but they overcame all difficulties together. James learned how to swaddle the baby, get up at night to soothe her, and even sang lullabies. "I never thought that I would sing at night, but I am ready for anything for Sophia," he joked, holding his daughter in his arms. Linda felt that her life had become truly complete. She and James became a team not only in their relationship, but also in raising their daughter. Sophia grew up in an atmosphere of love and care. One evening, sitting on the sofa after Sophia had fallen asleep, Linda looked at James. "I'm happy we were able to save our relationship. Now all I want is to watch our daughter grow up with you." James hugged her, answering, "I'm happy too. You gave me a second chance and I'll never forget it. Now we have everything we need: love, family, and a future." The life of Linda and James was filled with joyful moments. Sophia's first laugh, her first steps, her first word, which, to the joy of both, was Mom. They became stronger together, overcoming all difficulties. Linda and James never doubted again that they had made the right choice to get back together. Their family became an example of how love and forgiveness can overcome even the deepest wounds. Linda and James plunged into a new phase of their lives, devoting all their time and attention to little Sophia. Their home was filled with children's laughter, and every day brought something new and special. James enthusiastically participated in the upbringing of his daughter. He became a father who was always there, from night lullabies to playing in the park. When Sophia started walking, he was by her side, holding her little hands. "She's just a miracle," he told Linda one evening as they watched Sophia sleep together. "Yes, and this is our miracle," answered Linda, leaning against him. Eventually, when Sophia turned 3, Linda decided to return to work, but on a part-time basis to spend more time with her family. James supported her, even offering to help more with the housework so Linda wouldn't feel overwhelmed. "We are a team," he said, helping to prepare breakfast or clean up children's toys. Sophia grew up as an inquisitive and intelligent girl. They read books together, drew, walked in the park. James joked that Sophia would become an artist because her drawings already decorated the entire refrigerator. Linda was happy watching James become a real father. She saw the love and devotion in his eyes that only strengthened their relationship. Their weekends were always full of fun. They went out of town, went on picnics, visited the zoo. Sophia was delighted with animals, and every trip was a new adventure for her. One day, Linda suggested making a family tradition. Every year, they would create a photo album with the brightest moments. "This will be our family treasure," she said, showing the first finished album to James. "Great idea. Sophia will be able to remember all this when she grows up," he replied, flipping through pages of photos of their travels and holidays. As in every family, not everything was clear. Linda and James faced difficulties. Sometimes they were work problems, sometimes petty quarrels over household issues. But after taking courses with a psychologist, they learned not to accumulate resentment and to talk openly with each other. "We've been through too much to fight over little things like that," James said after another argument. "You're right, we're stronger than that," Linda replied, hugging him. A few years later, their happiness became even greater. Linda became pregnant again. This time, they were expecting a son. The news became a real holiday for the whole family. Sophia happily told everyone that she would soon become an older sister. When their son, whom they named Oliver, was born, their family became even more complete. James now jokingly called himself the luckiest dad in the world, and Linda felt loved and protected more than ever. Linda and James continued to build their lives, filled with love, support, and gratitude for each other. They never forgot what they had been through, and it only made their bond stronger. Every night when they put the children to bed, James would hug Linda and say, "Thank you for giving me a second chance. Now I know for sure that we are made for each other. And I thank you for proving that people can change." "I'm happy that you're around," answered Linda. Their life was full of love and joy, and now they knew that they could overcome any difficulties if they stayed together. Time passed, and life for Linda and James only got better. Their home was full of children's laughter, warm family evenings, and boundless love. Sophia grew up as an inquisitive and creative girl, and little Oliver managed to win everyone's hearts with his charming smile. Linda and James could now confidently say that they had overcome all the difficulties that had once almost destroyed their family. Their love grew stronger, deeper, and they cherished every moment together. One evening, they decided to organize a small family celebration in honor of Sophia's 5th birthday. The whole house was decorated with balloons, and there was a big cake with 5 candles on the table. "This is the best day of my life!" exclaimed Sophia, hugging her parents. Linda and James looked at her with warmth and pride. For them, this holiday was a symbol of how far they had come together. After dinner, after putting the children to bed, Linda and James sat on the terrace with cups of tea, enjoying the silence after a busy day. "You know," Linda began, "I think all these trials have made us stronger. If it hadn't been for what we've been through, we might not be who we are today." James took her hand and smiled. "I agree, and I am grateful to fate that we were able to overcome everything. Now I know, true happiness is you, our children, and our life together." They sat for a long time under the starry sky, discussing future plans and dreams. There was peace in their hearts and confidence in their souls that they had created a strong, happy family that had weathered the storms and found their sunshine. Their story ended not perfectly, but really happily, as it happens only in life, where love and faith help to overcome any difficulties.